Hey, I'm Rob Gant with the Goose Creek Gazette and the Berkeley Independent. I am here today with a couple of my teammates here. Roger Lee is a sports writer at the Summerville Journal-Scene. Ricky Dennis covers the Berkeley Stags for the Berkeley Independent. It's football season. It got cranked up on Friday. I know I was excited to have it all kind of get started. Roger, how about you?
Yeah, another football season upon us. I think we've got a lot of good stuff to look forward to this year, and it was fun to get back out there and see some high school sports.
From what I understand, your game was epic. We'll come back to you about that. Speaking of great games, Ricky, from what I understand, the Berkeley Stags were in a real tight one on Friday night. I guess tell us a little bit about that. And from what I understand, they played the Stratford on Friday. Talk about that too.
Yeah, so it was a great game if you're a football fan, I guess, depending on which side you're on. You were happy or upset with how the outcome was. But a great game. Berkeley lost the season opener against the Daniel Lions, Coach Robinson's old school. He's now 0-2 versus his old program, so I think that stings a little bit for him. He was excited, however, to see a couple of old faces. Berkeley, I think, struggled a lot from the offensive end. You can really see they're missing Darius Douglas a lot. They're not a little hesitant to pass the ball. They have their quarterback start with Eric Tuttle, who went 11-25. Only scored one touchdown though from the passing end, and then they scored a field goal to kind of give them those 10 points. So they're really looking to get into the offensive groove coming into playing Stratford. On the defensive end, they're still pretty solid. And you mentioned it being a tie game. It really came down to the wire where they had one more chance to score, but they got called back with that holding call. So they didn't get that opportunity to tie the game. But it was because of the defense that they even had that opportunity. The defense really had a lot of fourth down stops and gave their offense a chance to get another chance to score. So I think overall, I would imagine that they're a little comfortable with how the defense is. Of course, they can fine tune some things going into practice playing Stratford this coming week.
Yeah, I'll stop you there for a second. They do have Stratford on Friday, and that's an opportunity for them to kind of maybe get on track. Last year they knocked off Stratford, I think it was something like 47-14. Mm-hmm. Darius Douglas had a huge game. He had 6 touchdowns. Yeah. So anyway, but those two rivals hook up on Friday. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, well, I would expect, based on last year's game and based on Stratford's record last year, that Berkeley would expect to have a good game. Of course, if I'm Coach Rob, I'm not taking anything for granted. It's a county rivalry. You always want to beat your county rivals, and you really don't use the previous season to kind of give you a reason to be lax or play lackadaisical. So if I'm the Berkeley Stags, I'm bringing everything I got. If I'm the defense, I'm looking to really keep up the momentum from last year, and if I'm the offense, I'm using this as an opportunity to really find my groove and get comfortable as you prepare to move forward.
Yeah, Stratford has a lot to prove. Last year the Knights were 1-9, and that's really not traditionally who they've been. Over the years, the Knights have put out some very good football teams. I know they've won, I don't know, a couple dozen, I'd say almost 20 region championships, won a state championship. So now, as far as their mindset going into the game Friday, they're excited to kind of get started. Last year they were 1-9, so Berkeley presents an opportunity for them to see kind of where they are as the season starts. And historically, Stratford has had a lot of success against Berkeley. I believe last year's win for Berkeley was only the 4th win in the last 19 meetings between the two schools. I think it'll be a good game, and I'm very interested to see really what both teams bring to the table on Friday. Well, Friday I was also out at a football game. I saw the Cross High School Trojans, one of the better teams in Class A. They took on Burke High School. Let me tell you something. The Blue Thunder was out. The Burke man was out. It was a great atmosphere for a small-town football game. Cross really put on a clinic. Young quarterback Myron Wigfall, he's a sophomore. He threw a couple touchdown passes, one to Chris Moore, another one to Javon Ripley. Another name to mention there is Kobe Lisbon. He scored a couple touchdowns in the ground game for the Trojans. And then they have a great running back linebacker named Nate Walker, who is a Wofford commitment. He is basically the Brock Lesnar of that football team. He was running through Burke, and he was dragging people with him to the end zone. He was pushing them down. He was suplexing them. He's a man among boys. He's definitely a name to watch out for in Class A football. A few other games on Friday night. Hanahan took on May River. The Hawks kind of got it together in the second half, pulled away for a 27-8 27-8 win over May River. New quarterback Jake Ward. He ran for a touchdown, threw for over 100 yards. He also had some help from running backs Quincy Mitchell and Gale Ball. They combined for 160 yards. Both scored on the ground. And to see the Hawks have a tough one coming up on Friday against Andrews, coached by former Goose Creek High School baseball coach and football assistant Scott Durham. He has the Andrews Yellow Jackets kind of rolling on offense. They won on Friday 54-9. I talked with Coach Patterson earlier. He said that Hanahan has to have a more focused effort over 4 quarters if they plan to kind of hang in there with Andrews. But it should be a heck of a game. Last year, Andrews won 42-35. It was at Andrews. This one will be at Hanahan on Friday night. Couple other games. St. John's Christian, 51-8 winners over Buford Academy. It was the Mikey Smith show. If you remember him from last year, he's a young quarterback, or a good quarterback for St. John's Christian. He rushed for 4 touchdowns. He threw for 1. St. John's Christian they're 1-0. They are in action on Friday. They travel to Coastal Christian Prep. Don't really know a whole lot about Coastal Christian Prep, but I do know that St. John's Christian seems to have a pretty good football team. A couple of names there to mention. Chase Hughes adds to the offense. Blaze Poston is a receiver. They called a long touchdown pass. So, St. John's Christian seems to have some weapons. An intriguing matchup on Friday. Ashley Ridge, one of your teams, rolled over into Berkeley County and knocked off Cane Bay 34-20. From what I understand, Nick Cunningham had an excellent game for the Swamp Foxes. He had over 160 yards rushing, scored twice, and he really had a big game against Cane Bay's young defense. The Cobras are replacing 10 starters. You kind of had a feeling that they'd be kind of feeling their way around, trying to get this thing figured out kind of as the season goes along. And Ashley Ridge pulled out a big victory over the Cobras, scoring the final 2 touchdowns, I think, in the last minute. They scored 2 touchdowns in the 4th quarter to win 34-20. From what I understand, Cane Bay is traveling over to Goose Creek on Friday. That should be another good one. One other game to mention from Friday night: North Myrtle Beach rolled into town, knocked off the Timberland Wolves 14-6. That's just a classic case of a bigger school beating up on a smaller school. North Myrtle Beach is like a 4A school. Timberland's 3A. Still, the Wolves will be a pretty good football team. The Wolves hit the road to Woodland High School on Friday, and that's interesting because Coach Art Craig, who coaches for the Wolves, his son, Cody Craig, is the offensive coordinator over at Woodland. Woodland's coming off a 7-0 loss to Bamberg Earhart, so really I would expect Timberland to kind of get on track now that they're playing somebody their own size. Roger, we started off talking about your great game that you saw, Summerville, Spartanburg, 41-40. I know it took you forever to make your deadline because it was such a long game, but try to put that into words for us and tell us what kind of game it was.
Yeah, it was a television game too, so you had the TV timeouts. They didn't shake hands till 11:15.
So you got home. So you got home on Monday.
Yeah. But it was worth it if you were a fan there. You can't ask for much more of an exciting game than that one. Spartanburg came out, a defensive back returned the opening kickoff into the end zone to set the tone. Then it was back and forth. Summerville, Spartanburg. Daryl Hancock had a fabulous night for Summerville. Rushed for more than 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. And the great thing for Greenway fans is, he's not the only weapon they have this year. A lot of their weapons didn't get too involved. They involved them some, but, they still got some stuff they can show somebody. Berkeley's the next opponent. They have a bye week. But that game, I saw good things from Jonathan Bennett, Summerville's quarterback. He looks like he's matured, over the off season. The defense had its struggles against a powerful Spartanburg team, but they pulled it through when they needed to. The game featured, I guess you would have to call it a fight because I saw at least one punch thrown and some helmets ripped off in the end zone after a Spartanburg score. I think that stemmed from, they were just trying to rip the ball out and they tried too long. And, Spartanburg players kind of took offense maybe. But anyway, there were some ejections on both sides and some hard hits after that, but most of them clean, just a few of them maybe not, but just a really hard fought game against between 2 good teams.
And historically very good programs.
Also we had another game that a lot of people throughout the state were interested in. That was Fort Dorchester, Dorman. Fort Dorchester went into the Dorman Stadium, which I'm told is not an easy place to go into. You know, they've got a big fan base and nice stadium and all that. Dorman kind of kept the Fort offensive weapons at bay for a half, but then, you know, DeCarrion Joyner, Fort quarterback, took over. You know, completed a couple of passes to his playmakers, ran for a couple of touchdowns, and they ended up winning pretty handily, you know, in a second half effort.
Yeah, Joyner is definitely a guy that you're not going to keep him bottled up all 4 quarters. So if you have a good first half against him, you know the second half Joyner is probably going to light you up. That's just the kind of kid he is.
Yeah.
Gamecock fans will be happy to get him next year, and you know, I mean, I just really am looking forward to Fort Dorchester being one of the better teams in the state this year. It just seems like they will be.
Yeah, and Coach LaPrade said he was really proud of his defense the whole game. He said, you know, even the first half, they played well. They gave up, you know, 2 scores to a very good offense. So he's thinking they're going to be all right defensively. You know, they do have some questions on the line. They had some players to replace, but it's looking like they're going to be pretty strong this year.
Well, I mean, that kind of elevates you to the championship level if you have a good defense, because you know they have a great offense.
Right. You know, also teams from the Dorchester County side of things. Pinewood lost to Oceanside Collegiate?
Yes, Oceanside Collegiate.
Yeah, that was the first win for that program, so good thing for people east of the Cooper. But you know, Pinewood probably felt that was a game they could have won if they would have just like done a few things different. And also, you know, as you mentioned before, Ashley Ridge came out over the Cobras. You know, another thing that stuck out about that game is they had sophomore quarterback Matt Duncan. He played some last year, but this year it's pretty much it's looking like it's going to be his team.
Yeah.
And Kenny Walker said he did a good job. You know, he likes what he saw out of him. They did rely heavily on the running backs, especially Cunningham, who had that fabulous night. And then, you know, the defense, Ashley Ridge defense scored the last game off an interception. So, you know, that might have been a little bit closer game if K-Bay would have been able to avoid that interception.
Yeah, that's right. Ashley Ridge scored with like about a minute and a half or 2 minutes left, and then they intercepted the ball. Yeah, that was I mean, it's a great win for Ashley Ridge because Cane Bay won 10 games last year. So I mean, it looks like we had a very exciting week 0. Week 1 is coming up. Ricky, you got any final thoughts?
No, like I said, I'm really just excited to see how Berkeley plays out. I think the key for Berkeley, really probably like it was last year, will be Randy Robinson. I mean, how he can kind of remotivate his guys just like he did last year to get them that significant region championship. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond to this loss and how he kind of fine-tune some things to get them hopefully to that same level that they were last year in this region. So.
Well, teams do make a lot of improvement between their first game and their second game. Coaches often say that that's when they make the most improvement. Well, for me, Friday night, I'm going to be at Goose Creek, Cane Bay. You can follow me on Twitter. That should be a good one. Roger, some of your games Friday, can you tell us about those real quick?
Yeah, we got Fort Dorchester's got its home opener against Colleton County. You know, I'd say Fort's definitely the Mayweather of that bout. I don't know that I would call Colleton County the McGregor, but anyway, they're definitely the Mayweather. And then we've got Ashley Ridge is hosting Bowling Springs, which is going to be a good game. Bowling Springs has got the best of the Foxes the last couple of years. Bowling Springs is a well-coached team. They have a lot of athleticism and team speed usually is the difference for them. But I think this year the Swamp Foxes might have the speed to match them more across the board. They've always had speed at Ashley Ridge, but I think they've got more speed across the board. So I'm hoping with that game being at Ashley Ridge, it'll be a tighter game. And then we've got Pinewood is hosting Northwood Academy. You know, Pinewood's looking to get its first win. That's a rivalry game, so anything could go. But I look for Matthew Latham to have a big night running the ball, and hopefully the Pinewood defense to make some stops that they didn't make last week. But Northwood's got a decent squad, don't they?
Well, they're young, and they're still trying to figure it out. It's hard to tell in the preseason because you don't know. You know, if you got guys banged up and they don't play, or your older kids aren't playing, you don't really know. I mean, in the preseason, I don't think they showed us a whole lot. But I did see that they had some guys that they're counting on a lot that were on the sidelines not playing, so I don't know. Could be an interesting game. I mean, I think they've played about 9-10 times over the last 9 or 10 years. I think Pinewood's won like 6 out of the 9. So, one last tip: drink your water, stay hydrated. See y'all at this football stadium, guys.